Welcome to the Skeptic Zone Live at DragonCon 2019, episode number 568 for the 8th of September 2019. Of course, in the edit, I'll cut out the gap. My name is Richard Saunders. I am the host and the producer of the Skeptic Zone podcast. The Skeptic Zone podcast has been continually in production since 2008. And the very first time I did a recording for the Skeptic Zone podcast was just over there in that part of the room. The Skeptic Zone kicked off in 2008 right here at DragonCon. Since then, we've had over 500 shows, 568 this will be, as I said. Hundreds of guests, hundreds of interviews, hundreds of reports, investigations from around the world. Over those years, we've had 17 or 18 different reporters who come and go for the show. The show's a magazine style. It has segments. It's not one long show. It normally goes for around about an hour. The current crop of reporters I have from around the world are Dr. Rachel Dunlop, Maynard in Australia, Iran Segev, Heidi Robinson, Mandy Lee Noble, Michelle Franklin, Trish Han, Dr. Paulie, and Dr. Cassandra Perryman. And each of those reporters send me material, which I edit and put out on the show each week, covering science and medicine and skepticism and reports and all sorts of things. We've had, as I said, hundreds of interviews over those years. Being based in Australia, when I hook up to do an interview for somebody in New York or somebody in London or wherever the case may be, it's often the case I have to set my alarm clock for 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. But that's just part and parcel of doing an international podcasting show. You must always remember your audience, and you must be gracious to your guests, I guess you'd say. Now, there's the real team behind the Skeptic Zone. The Skeptic Zone podcast has always had cats around. In the early days, there were 2 cats, and now there are 2 other cats. And quite often when I'm recording the show in my little studio there, I have to stop the edit because a cat will jump on my lap and want to talk to the audience, of course, naturally. Actually, I'm pleased they're there. It really helps. And they do direct the show occasionally with their meows and whatever the case may be. That's Henrietta and Maud, by the way, the skeptical cats. 2008. In this very room, a picture of me presenting the very first, or recording a segment for the very first Skeptic Zone podcast. And there's a guy I sort of bumped into along the way a few months before at the amazing meeting. And it's wonderful to have such a long-standing relationship with a fellow podcaster as Derek. And I think you invited me here originally, Derek.
After I met you at TAM.
Yeah, he met me at TAM and suggested I come to DragonCon. And just at that stage, I was formulating the idea for a new skeptical show. Now, these are just some of the microphones I've used over the years. And every 2 or 3 years, it seems to me, I try and use a different microphone. And any podcasters out there, I use the Zoom range of microphones, which are very good, and I found them to be excellent in all sorts of situations. A Sennheiser shotgun microphone, which is great for voiceover work. The Yellowtech IXM, which is the big one down the bottom, which Maynard uses, one of my reporters, and I have one, which is a brilliant microphone for recording people in noisy situations. And the Rode Reporter, an Australian microphone especially designed for interviewing politicians and things like that. And these days, the whole podcast is produced solely on an iPad. It's incredible. When I first started, I was sort of chained to a PC to do the production and the artwork and all that sort of stuff. Now, I can do it everything. In fact, I could do it on my iPhone if I so wanted. The iPad is better because it's got a bigger screen. But it's incredible the way technology is progressing, which means that I can travel anywhere, be on the bus, be on the train, and still work on the Skeptic Zone podcast. Artwork, production, everything. It's fantastic. Podcast also, I'm quite pleased, about 5 years ago, we produced a space adventure called Solar Flare, which was a space adventure sending up Wu and magical thinking, and it was based or set on the Australian spaceship, or AS, the solar flare. And it had a special guest podcasters, and also had the villain was Jay Novella from The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. If you want to hear the solar flare adventure, that's at skepticzone.tv, and it was such fun to put that together to make a podcast. So that's briefly what the show's all about. It's at heart, it's science and skepticism. It's promoting science. What's new? What does this person think? What's the latest scam that we can attack? It's wonderful to get feedback from listeners all around the world, from the far north of Canada to Africa to many people here in the United States. And the policy of the show from day one is not to carry paid advertising. What I do, however, is I promote other skeptical events, organizations, and other podcasts from around the world completely free, because I feel like it's the right thing to do. I'm just one. There are many other podcasts, including the original Skepticality, the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, the European Skeptics podcast, Skeptoid, the ESP from Europe. And something Bob Novella told me once is, he said, if one floats, we all float. So it's really nice to promote other skeptical podcasts. And so the show does rely on the generosity of the listeners. So there's a Patreon or a PayPal, and I'm pleased to say that some people enjoy the show enough to chip in and help out with the production costs and so on. But as yet, I have never had a paid advertisement on the show, and I think that's not a bad policy. I think I'll try to stick with that one as long as possible. Well, that's the show in a nutshell, or a nutcase in my case, I think. And one of the wonderful joys of doing the Skeptic Zone, of course, is the people I get to meet from all around the world, even if it's via Skype or on the video when I can interview them, and the people I can meet in person over the years. And if I'm lucky enough, I get to interview them too. So, with that in mind, I'd like to call up my guest for this special live episode, Margaret Downey, everybody. Please come up.
Hello.
Hello, great to see you.
Thank you.
Now, normally when I'm doing interviews, of course, it's via Skype or maybe in another situation. I have the wonderful luxury of doing edits afterwards, but this is live.
I love it live.
Okay. So we'll see what we can get. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I've known you for some years now, hasn't it been?
Yes.
I guess we met at TAM.
Yeah.
But you've been a secular activist for 30 years.
Almost 30 years.
This is quite an achievement in itself, because people lose interest in things and move on.
But there's never, ever a break in the activism that I do, because I am very concerned about the separation of religion and government.
Yeah.
And it never fails to open the newspaper every day and find another issue to work on.
I'm sure in this country you'd never have a dull moment.
Never.
But you've been involved in one discrimination lawsuit, which sounds interesting, a separation of religion and government federal lawsuit, gets even worse, featured in 3 books, 50 Voices of Disbelief, A Better Life, and Parenting Beyond Belief. You founded the Free Thought Society, and you've become well known for your other projects, parties.
Oh, my parties, yes.
Parties and creative activities. What's the parties? What's that line?
Well, this is about skepticism and teaching critical thinking skills. I always do a Friday the 13th anti-superstition bash, where we open our doors and we call ourselves the Frigatriskaidekaphobia Treatment Center.
Hang on, the Frigate...
Triskaidekaphobia Treatment Center.
Treatments. Oh, I like that.
And we open our doors as if we're opening an emergency room hospital. We have doctors and nurses, and we even do CAT scans. The CAT scan is, of course, a little black stuffed cat that we wave over the person's head. But it's a lot of fun. Everybody gets into it with dancing and games. We have some great games that we have thought out over the years. We always have a piñata in the shape of a ghost, and we play Ghostbusters when we attack the ghost. We break a mirror at a certain time every Friday the 13th, and it freaks people out. This party has garnered so much press for our group because it's so unusual that journalists love to cover it. Television crews come out because it's interesting. We're all in costume and we're having fun and we're poking fun at superstitions. I had one crew member come out from CBS, and he was doing an interview with me before the party started, and it started to rain outside. He says, hurry up, I gotta get out of here. You're gonna break mirrors, and you're doing all this unlucky stuff. I'm gonna have an accident if I don't leave now. So even, the people that come to just cover the thing are very superstitious.
Isn't that interesting? But I think this hotel, the Hilton, has a 13th floor, if I'm not mistaken.
Did it? Oh, I haven't been in the elevator.
I really think it does, because harking back to Las Vegas, where we probably met, I think, the hotels there certainly don't have a 13th floor.
So many don't. But, in Japan, there's an unlucky floor there. I think it's 7 or 4. I get the countries mixed up.
I think China, if I'm not mistaken, 4 is an unlucky number.
Okay.
To certain Chinese people.
Yeah.
But that's the fun we've had at Las Vegas. But how did you get involved with this particular track here in Atlanta?
Oh, well, about 9 years ago, Derek invited me to come as the Frigatrisca decaphobia treatment nurse. And I brought along all my paraphernalia, and I did a little speech about Friday the 13th and how important it is for groups to have fun and to draw media attention and to teach critical thinking skills. So I shared the idea of this party with the Skeptrack group. And from that point on, Derek and I just started to be friends, and one day I said to him, Derek, why haven't the Skeptics ever participated in the DragonCon parade? But I was ready to volunteer for that job. I never ask a question without being ready to fill the spot. And Derek said, yes, I want you to fill that spot. We need to be out there. Here's our chance to be in front of, well, at the time, there was only 60,000 people watching us. Today, this morning,
yes.
There were 90,000 people. I heard yesterday that there were 80,000 people actually signed up for the conference. So that's an amazing opportunity to have skepticism on display.
It was a fascinating, I was in it. I was a Greek philosopher. And I was so happy, folks, I was wearing a toga and sandals.
He had the coolest costume.
People around me in different marches of the Star Trek and other people must have been dying because of the heat. And there I was striding along with my sandals thinking, this is pretty good. How long have you been involved with the parade then?
Well, I'm going on my 9th year at DragonCon, but I think it wasn't until about 7 years ago that I started doing all of the costume loaning. I bring about 50 costumes into the Skeptrack on Friday and loan them out, and people volunteer, and we just have an amazing time.
Yeah, and of course the word is, if you're going to come back to DragonCon next year, or listeners, if you're thinking of coming to DragonCon 2020, you too can participate in the parade.
Absolutely, and we love for people to bring their own costumes, but they have to let me know ahead of time, because I make professional signs,
yes,
so that we can convey skepticism with a character as we walk down the street. And people love to read our signs because they're funny. We have a little group in the front called the Punny Costumes. And then after that, there's a little banner, Skeptics in History. And that's very educational. We have characters like Galileo and Ida B. Wells and Frederick Douglass, and one time I had a Tom Paine walking with us. So we had Hypatia this year.
We did, yes.
And the Greek philosopher.
What
and Charles Darwin.
Charles Darwin.
He was great.
Yeah. What I found was fascinating was we'd be marching along, I'd be striding along, nobody called out my name. But a lot of kids, and I'm speaking about little kids, were yelling out, Albert Einstein, Albert Einstein. It happened continuously.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just amazing because they recognized the guy, the mustache, the white hair, and they knew who he was instantly.
Yeah.
That was a revelation to me. That was fascinating. And again, they didn't call out my name, but what can... Some guy in a toga, you know. Now, you have a disdain for discrimination.
Yes.
Absolutely. And...
Well, that goes way back,
yeah.
Richard. I was born in 1950, and I grew up in Louisiana, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I have a half-sister of color, and she's 3 years older than I am. So as I had my formative years, between the ages of 0 and 7, I saw the way my half-sister was treated in Louisiana. She couldn't use the same bathroom that I was using. She could not drink out of the same water faucet. She was always sent to the back of the bus. And so my formative years, I was always asking, why was my sister being treated this way? And it put something in my brain where I cannot stand to see anyone discriminated against in any way. I couldn't fight discrimination as a child, but as an adult, I could really fight this in every way I could. So when my son was 12 years old, he had gone through years of Boy Scouts, but he was ready for the next level, and we moved. The new troop that we introduced ourselves to told us that atheists were not welcome. But they not only told us we were not welcome there, they sent us a letter that said, no boy could ever be the best kind of citizen without a belief in God. And I was furious. Nobody discriminates against my kid. So
wow.
I put together an outreach to other families who had been discriminated against, and I formed the Anti-Discrimination Support Network, where we could all maybe share attorneys, maybe we could share other amicus briefs and things for our cases. And it spread across the country. And I heard from about 50 families altogether. I moved forward with my case at the same time that a gay man in New Jersey was suing the Boy Scouts for discrimination. Now, his case was moving faster than my case. My case took 9 years of investigation. In the meantime, the Boy Scouts were being sued by a homosexual man who wanted to be a troop leader. His case went all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Boy Scouts won the case, and I'll tell you how. They claimed that they were not a public accommodation. They claimed that they were now a private organization and could pick whoever they wanted to be a member. And the Supreme Court agreed that private organizations could pick their own members. The problem is the Boy Scouts have never been private. They get public funding. They get help from the government. They have a United States charter. There's all kinds of favoritism given to the Boy Scouts. Their jamboree cost taxpayers $7 million a year when they put it on, their jamboree. They use public lands for free. They don't pay taxes. So all of this didn't matter. Now, the Boy Scouts stopped discriminating against homosexuals. They now are allowed into the Boy Scouts. Girls are allowed in the Boy Scouts. Non-theists are still not allowed. So my fight continues against the Boy Scouts.
It must be incredibly difficult in this country, and we use the expression playing fast and loose. That some people, it seems to me, can play fast and loose with the law in this country to get their ends.
It's true. It's true. And, I don't know what amount of shame has to be put upon the Boy Scouts to be ashamed of that bigoted policy. I don't know what it's going to take. I think the more we speak out, if you see the Boy Scouts in your public schools recruiting, speak up. Don't let them do that, because they're going in there to look for religious religious kids to join. Let them go recruit in a religious school. Don't let them into the public school.
Yeah. Now, harking back to your general disdain for discrimination, how do you work zodiac signs into that?
Ah, yes. At the anti-superstition party, we consider astrology, I spell it with 2 S's, by the way.
Astrology?
Yes, and zodiac signs, horoscopes, all to be very prejudicial because they try to put people in a box. They try to say, okay, well, what sign are you? Oh, you're a Leo, you must be this, that, or the other thing. We don't want people to be categorized like that. We think it's discriminatory. I once had a friend, the first thing she wanted to know was when I was born, and I said, why? She said, well, I want to know if our zodiac signs are compatible. What? No, my sign is stop. But I also ran into, just last year, it was a relative, and she owned a business, and we were just talking over a family dinner, and horoscopes came up, and she says, oh, I forgot to check my horoscope. And I said, oh, that's nonsense. Don't let someone tell you how to live your life. Just make your decisions, your choices based on common sense and your own ability to make a decision. And she said, well, when people apply for a job at my business, I ask them when they were born and what their zodiac sign is. Here it is, trying to categorize during an interview for a job. I was appalled.
Yeah, it is surprising, but you know, there are other cultures who use blood types.
No.
Yeah, you have not heard that?
No, I haven't heard this.
What's your blood type? I'm an O. Oh, I'm sorry. Japan, says Derek Colandino, yelling from the corner. Yeah, I think you're right.
Oh, this is what I love about being with people like you. You teach me little things like that.
Now, how many people, quick show of hands in the audience, know their blood type? Most people, that's impressive, maybe about 85% of people. For those of you who don't, find out straight away. It might be important if you visit Japan.
Or have an emergency room visit.
Or have an emergency, probably more important. Now, people listening to this via the podcast coming out, you may be curious to know why the music fluctuates in the background occasionally. It's because there's a huge dancing or something, or dinosaurs, or I don't know what's going on outside.
Everybody dances down in the lobby.
And every time the doors open, which is great because people are coming in, the music sort of comes up and down, but that's all right. That's part of DragonCon.
The Hilton was so smart to put a DJ in their lobby because people flock over here to dance and to meet people. I think it's great.
Now, you let me know that you've been facing some discrimination issues during the winter holiday season.
Oh, yes.
In your hometown of West Chester, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I've never been to Pennsylvania. I'll have to visit. What's happening there?
Well, about 2007, we decided that we needed to have a winter holiday symbol for the non-theist community.
See.
So we actually, we thought about this about 10 years earlier, actually, about 2000. And we had this little contest about, okay, what would be the best winter holiday season symbol for non-theists? And we had people submit ideas. We had one idea was just put a giant question mark on the lawn of the courthouse, and I thought, no, that's not gonna work. So I submitted my idea, which was the Tree of Knowledge. And the board approved that. And so since 2007, we have been promoting our Tree of Knowledge symbol. And what it is, it's a big evergreen tree. And we take the time to get 2 color copies of our books that we recommend to learn critical thinking, to learn about humanism, atheism, science, history, our heroes. And we put the color copies together back to back. We put them in a lamination sleeve through the machine. We poke a hole at the top, and it's our ornament. And our ornaments are so well made, they've lasted since 2007 outdoors, but we only had the tree up for 3 years in a row. The commissioners and the community was unaccepting of our symbol. They passed a resolution that declared the free speech zone was now going to be the commissioner's zone, and they would pick the symbols that represent the non-theist community. So they have chosen a big fat Santa Claus and a choo-choo train and some reindeers and some candy canes. And that's supposed to symbolize us. That's the secular symbols that they have assigned to us.
A choo-choo train.
Yeah. And we,
of course, it's obvious, isn't it? A choo-choo train, of course.
We go there and every year since they passed that resolution, which is 2010, we stand there and we ask them to remove the resolution or readjust the resolution so that we could have our symbol. And we call those other symbols childish things. They do not represent who we are, what our mission is, what our goals are as a community. We've been rejected every year since 2010, but I have good news. Other trees of knowledge have sprouted up in other areas across the country, in Canada and one in India. So we are very proud that this symbol seems to be going international. And we're now selling the ornaments. We've calculated how big a tree is and how many ornaments you might need. So in the back, I have some newsletters. Please grab a newsletter, keep in touch with us, and maybe talk to us about helping you with a tree of knowledge in your area.
Now, for those people listening, where can they go to now as they're listening to the show to find out about this?
Yes, ftsociety.org. F is in free, T is in thought, society.org.
So when I first started thinking about it, and you're saying a symbol for winter, of course, winter in Australia is July, August, so...
You know, a tree would look pretty there too.
It would. And we have something sometimes called Christmas in July.
Oh.
So people run up to the mountains outside of Sydney and have big Christmas feasts and things like that.
Nice.
So it's quite fun. But speaking about religious things, of course, you've also been embroiled in the 10 Commandments. Now, which ones have you broken? That's what I want.
Well, they're all breakable as far as I'm concerned. Would you, in self-defense, kill someone who was attacking you and trying to murder you? Would you steal a loaf of bread for a hungry, if you were a mother for your child, would you steal that loaf of bread if you couldn't feed your child otherwise? So commandments are demandments as far as I'm concerned. And we have to use common sense when we say what our moral guidance should be. But yes, on that courthouse where we have our so-called free speech zone, which is now the commissioner's zone, there's a big plaque of the 10 Commandments. It is the Protestant version. And it specifically eliminated the clause about I'm freeing people from the slavery of Egypt, which was appealing to the Jewish people, of course, but that's left off. It's the Protestant version. Catholics have their own 10 Commandment version. There's several versions in the Bible. People don't even know that. Actually, there's about 600 demandments in the Bible, including don't eat fish and don't eat shellfish, and you have to dress a certain way, and no gold, and
no gold?
Yeah, it's in the threads.
Oh, I see, right.
But anyway, I divert. So the lawsuit, we filed a lawsuit, I think it was in July of 2001. And it didn't go public until October.
How did you angle the lawsuit?
Well, we claimed that this was a violation of religion and government. It was on a government building. It was placed there in the 1920s when they were trying to promote Protestantism, and we looked into the history of it. It was put up by a member of the Ku Klux Klan. So we had a lot of baggage associated with this plaque. And so we had our day in court, and it was really tough. We presented our case, and the judge agreed with us. We won the first round. against the Ten Commandments. The plaque was covered with this metal covering because the commissioners then filed an appeal. So during the appeal, the Ten Commandments was covered, but what happened to me as the plaintiff and my friend Sally as the plaintiff was unbelievable. We were getting death threats every day. We were getting harassing email. We had to turn over things to the Homeland Security, the FBI, the CIA. They were all investigating because most of the threats came to us over the internet. So that's international terrorism.
I guess it is, but it's sadly, it's easy for somebody to get annoyed and type a death threat.
Yes.
And it seems to happen quite a lot. It's not that you shouldn't take them seriously, but it's sad to me that how easily certain people in society just will do this.
Well, I take everything seriously, and my pile was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Phone calls. I got a lot of death threats when I sued the Boy Scouts too, I have to tell you. So I was kind of used to getting those types of death threats. But my neighbors got together and they started a campaign, not only a shunning campaign, but they got signs made of the Ten Commandments and they put them in their yards so that I would see that I was not welcome in my community. And I just had to ignore that and laugh and say, you know, I guess my neighbor has to remind her husband not to commit adultery today. Or, you know, that neighbor has to remind her kids to honor her. So I tried to, you know, have a good sense of humor about it.
But as I understand it, I mean, I can just look at the American currency, and it's got "In God We Trust." But how can this be? I mean,
well, you know, I'm glad you mentioned that because let me pull you up to the appeals level.
Oh, please, yeah.
And in marches the three judges, and one of them is Marianne Trump Berry. Yes, Trump's sister was our appeals judge. And the other judge was kind of fiddling with his pocket. So he sits down and he's staring me down, and my attorney is showing all the death threats. If this is a secular plaque, why is she getting death threats? And, you know, we presented our whole case, and the judge pulls out a quarter. And he says, "It says in God we trust on my money. Are you going to try to take that off too?" I said, yes. It doesn't belong there. Oh, by the way, when I was a plaintiff in this lawsuit, the first thing right off the bat, I refused to put my hand on a Bible and swear. I refused to do that. I would be hypocritical, and I did not want my trial to start off on that wrong foot. And I just looked up at the judge and I said, I will not tell a lie. It is not ethical to tell a lie. I am a moral person. I do not have to swear an oath to any deity. You can trust me. And he said, okay.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. So we lost the appeal. The plaque was uncovered and it stands there today. And the reason we lost is because the plaque was 80 years old. And they said, it has so much history that it needs to stay. History trumped the Constitution. 80 years old is not even an antique. It's a collectible, but put that collectible on a church where it belongs.
So you think that they would prevent new plaques being put up in that case?
Yes. So around that time was when that 5,000-ton Ten Commandment monument was put up in, was it Alabama or was it out? Yeah. He put it up in the middle of the night.
Please tell me more about that, because for our listeners around the world, what's the story behind that?
Yes, this judge decided that he wanted this 5-ton Ten Commandment monument put up in front of the courthouse. So in the middle of the night, he snuck it in and put it on the lawn. And
how can you sneak in it?
I know. He had, I guess,
truck,
his church folks, you know, got together and
Wow.
said, yeah, let's do this. So he refused to remove it. He said, I'm a judge, I'm a big shot, I want my 10 Commandments. And what happened in the Supreme Court case about the 10 Commandments is that old 10 Commandment monuments can stay as long as they're surrounded by secular things to balance off this display. But the 5-ton monument had to go.
Ah, right, okay.
And so it was removed at the expense of Judge Moore. He lost his judgeship, but wouldn't you know, he's back as a candidate for public office. We can't get rid of this guy for some reason. He just keeps coming back for more.
I wonder what he'll try to pull
Get
next
that?
then.
Coming back for more.
Oh, I wonder what he'll try to spring on the society next then.
Well, hopefully he will not be put into office or given any power.
Yeah. Speaking of office and political office and this sort of thing, it's sort of, I don't know if you call it a meme or something, but it's well understood that no atheist can become president of the United States.
Well, that's going to change. That is not written, by the way.
That's not written, but what, you know what I mean by that. If somebody came out as an atheist, they wouldn't...
The statistics are looking better. There was a time when the statistics were very bad for atheists in public office, but they are slowly rising because our society is becoming so much more accepting of non-theism. In fact, the secular community is the fastest growing community in America. And I've used that line when I lobby. I'll visit my legislators in Washington, D.C., and I go up and I say, I recommend the fastest growing minority in America. They go, wow, yeah, who do you represent? Atheists. We are growing so fast. You need to pay attention to us because we're the ones that are going to put you in office or keep you out of office.
It's going to be interesting to see how things change over the next 10, 20 years, maybe?
Well, the Democratic Party just put secularism in their platform, recognizing the secular community. So we're very pleased about that. So things are looking up on that end, Richard.
I can well understand why people send you hate mails and death threats and things like this, because you're really rattling a few cages there and a few deeply held beliefs. But, I mean, you've had your enemies. You probably will have in the future. But you've certainly had your supporters and your friends, haven't you?
Yes, I love my friends, including everybody I meet here at DragonCon. Some of the important people that I've met, I've just been so enhanced in my life by meeting people like Richard Dawkins and Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye, and and every one of them have touched me in some way. You want to hear a funny Neil deGrasse Tyson story?
I always want to hear a funny Neil deGrasse Tyson story.
Okay, so 2008, I contacted him and I said, I have an idea. I want to put on a unity convention. I want to talk to you about supporting this idea. Can we meet for lunch? He said, sure, let's go meet for lunch. So we had this 3-hour lunch. It was spectacular. I'm with Neil deGrasse Tyson for 3 hours and have his ear. And as usual, I pay my own way every place I go. So the bill comes, and of course he's a gentleman. Oh, I'll get that. No. I always pay my own way. So I pulled out my purse and I pulled out my money and my black marker. And I started to cross off, in God we trust. And he's, what are you doing? I said, this money needs to be cleaned up. I'm just taking off this dumbass motto. And he goes, oh, I've never seen anybody do that. And I told him the history about when it was put on our currency in 1954 as part of the Red Scare. I told him about it's not illegal to mark off in God we trust. Everybody should do it. And he listened very intently. So about 6 months later, I was given the job of giving him an award for the American Humanist Association. So I gave him the award, and he comes up, and the first thing he talks about is our lunch and me crossing off in God we trust. And I'm, of course, oh, that's pretty funny. We'll get on with something else. About 4 years later, I went to his huge speech where he has thousands in attendance. And as part of his speech, he talks about the currency in other countries honoring engineering, science, heroes, Darwin, and just on, and he shows samples, and he says, and then in our country we have this motto. So I think I influenced him a little bit.
That's interesting,
yeah.
because I think, and my Australian listeners might correct me, I think there's a law in our country that you cannot deface the currency, but you can mark it here.
Oh yes, as long as you don't change the denomination of it, right? So if you can't change, the one to
into 100 or something.
Yeah. But black markers work terrific because you can easily put them in your purse and put them out, and you do the waterproof kind. So if you accidentally put your currency in the wash, it won't wash away.
I'll have to try that. I'll just have to collect some American currency. Any volunteers? I want to try it with all the currency, starting at 1 and working my way up.
Oh, by the way, you can still buy currency that does not have the motto. Just ask for pre-1954 currency. And I used to carry pre-1954 currency around because that was the first thing people would always attack me with. If I was on a TV show or someplace, a radio show, they would always say, well, our currency says in God we trust. And then I pull out the proof that before 1954, it did not have that on our currency.
Is it on every coin?
It is on coins, yes.
It is, okay.
And the coinage actually started right after the Civil War. They made their first coin with In God We Trust because this preacher convinced the government that it would be helpful to the United States to have something to bring them together. And he thought believing in a deity would be great. It's not great.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I didn't know, because in Australia, long since, a couple of decades, we stopped using 1 and 2 cent. We had a 2 cent.
Oh.
And it was decided they were just in the way, and would, what do you call it, shrapnel in the pocket. So do you think this country will get rid of its 1 cent, the penny?
I'm not sure about that. It seems to me that more and more people are using credit cards and PayPal and those types of things. So perhaps we won't have that germ-infested currency rolling around in our pockets.
What does the audience think? Would you like to see the end of the penny?
Yeah. Would you like to see the end of In God We Trust?
Now, what we'll do now, folks, is we'll open up to questions for about 10 minutes, and then I'll do a wrap-up after that. So if you've got a question for Margaret, there's a microphone in the middle.
Or for Richard.
Or for me. There it is. The microphone appeared. As if by magic it appeared. If you've got a question about Margaret's adventures or a general question for me, please feel free to head up to the microphone. And while you're thinking about your question, finally, what other projects are you involved with at the moment?
Oh, there's so many. The Free Thought Society started a prisoner literature outreach program where we're placing free thought literature on prison library bookshelves. That's been a really rewarding type of project. We're starting our fundraiser for a Thomas Paine statue, and that will be put in either Washington, D.C. or Philadelphia. And
Philadelphia, I suppose, would be that's the famous place for the cradle of American democracy.
And when he arrived to the United States when he was 40, that's where he came in, is Philadelphia. So I'd like to see it there. But I know that Washington, D.C. is a better place for it because more people go there and see those monuments.
Just briefly, while this gentleman is about to ask his question, for those international listeners, very quickly, who was Thomas Paine?
Well, Thomas Paine is one of the great free thought heroes. He was an Englishman who, on the invitation of Benjamin Franklin, came to the United States because he was a very good writer and he spoke in eloquent ways that reached the common man. And he wrote Common Sense, which stirred up the colonists to form the revolutionary sense. And when George Washington battled in the Revolution, Thomas Paine wrote the Crisis Papers, which were read aloud to all the troops under Washington's command, and they were inspired by Thomas Paine's words. But then he went on to write beautiful works such as The Age of Reason. And The Age of Reason is encouraging people to think critically and to appreciate the natural world. We love that book. And Rights of Man actually started the French Revolution. It was the reading of that particular book that inspired the people in France to overthrow their king. A very, very good revolutionary mind. That's why we want to honor him.
Excellent. Question?
This is related to your lawsuits. Do you use the Freedom from Religion organization for that? Do they help fund that and give you the legal support?
Well, I'm a board member of the Freedom from Religion Foundation. They are one of the very best organizations out there. They have a team of attorneys. I think there's about 12 of them now. And they're doing very well, so they can finance a lot of separation of religion and government lawsuits. So if you do have a situation in your area, you can contact the Freedom from Religion Foundation. They will assign an attorney, or they'll write a letter on your behalf, and sometimes just a letter will stop a violation. And I highly recommend that all of you look up the Freedom from Religion Foundation at ffrf.org. They did not help me in my lawsuits. I always used the ACLU. But they were in the background giving me advice, helping me connect with other people who are in the same situation, doing amicus briefs. What a wonderful organization.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
So you're a hero, Margaret. So, what was your favorite thing that you've done so far in your life?
What was my favorite what?
What was your favorite thing that you've done in your life?
Oh, what a great question, Bailey. Everyone, this is Bailey. She's our young scientist at age 13. She's written 3 books.
And she's going to be a guest on the Skeptic Zone pretty soon, I think.
Yeah, I guess I'm most proud of my fight against discrimination. I started the Anti-Discrimination Support Network, as I told you. It has since been adopted by the Secular Coalition for America. And I'm so proud that our database is used by the United Nations to gauge how much discrimination is going on in the United States. It's used by journalists when they want to find cases, people to interview. It's used as evidence when we claim that we are discriminated against. We have the facts and the evidence right there. It's used by professors in schools to teach students. So I'm really proud of the Anti-Discrimination Support Network, even though I don't run it anymore.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Robert. I'm actually a Christian, so I might have walked into the wrong room.
You are welcome.
No, I've read a lot of atheist literature. I'm a big fan of a lot of skeptical literature and authors. So I was just wondering what you would say is a more subtle way atheists are discriminated, particularly in America, like something that, because a lot of discrimination of all types can be very overlooked for many years, and there's a lot of discrimination that can be very subtle but significant. So I was just wondering what comes to mind for you for that.
Well, the first thing that I would like to convey to you as I have a chance is that we do have documented a murder. An atheist man was murdered by an Eagle Scout for admitting that he was an atheist, and it enraged his neighbor to the point where the neighbor went and got a rifle and shot him. This is a Michigan case. That's our worst case in the database. We have everything from families being broken up, children being kicked out of the house, people shunning atheists, refusing service at restaurants because there's an atheist pin, things like people losing their jobs, people losing their friends, in schools, teachers being fired. It runs a large array of things. We're also trying to get journalists to stop saying there are no atheists in foxholes. There are atheists in foxholes, and we think that very statement is prejudicial.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking that.
One last question, yes.
What's your opinion on the fetal heartbeat bill?
The fetal heartbeat bill. Well, I am a pro-choice person, and I think that it's important to remember the development of the fetus and that it is a zygote to a certain point. It's up to the woman to be in charge of her pregnancy. It's not up to the government.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, what a fascinating time we've had. We'll wrap up the show in a minute, but for now, I want you to put your hands together and thank Margaret Downey for joining. Now, to wrap up the show, sometimes, not every episode, there's an Easter egg. And the Easter egg is I play a dice game, and I want the audience to use their psychic powers to come up with what they think the roll of the dice will be. And I want to play with all of you. So I've got a D10 here, bought at DragonCon, and I've got a special guest dice roller who I'll get to use the microphone down there in the center of the room. Ladies and gentlemen, all the way from the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, Evan Bernstein. Yay! And I'll get the house lights up if I may, please. There we are. Evan.
Hi, Richard.
Hi.
Hi, Margaret.
Hi.
Hi.
Ready? Here it comes.
Oh, no, but okay. Jeez, where is anyone see that?
I got another one.
Richard, you didn't tell me this was a game of dexterity here.
Ready?
Ready.
I'll get a runner.
Oh, wait, we got it. We got
Oh, you got it. All right.
No more
So,
projectiles required.
we're going to find out who in the room has the most psychic power. What's going to happen in a minute? Evan's going to roll the dice just in your hands, drop it on the floor, and you'll call out the number. Now, I want you all to stand up. All right? If your psychic predictions tell you that the number Evan's going to call out is an even number, I want you to put your hands on your head. If you think your psychic powers are telling you the number's going to be odd, put your hands on your the Australian spaceship. The derriere. Okay.
Or
that's
assume a
interesting.
Wonder Woman pose.
A Wonder Woman pose, okay. So what's going to happen is for the folks playing at home, they're going to be also predicting the number that's going to be called out. Are you ready?
Ready, Richard.
Psychic powers going. Think of the number. Think of odds and evens.
Here we go.
Here we go. And the first number is...
5.
All the people who thought it was odds, keep standing. Evens, sit down. 5. All right. Oh, well, there is a prize for the person with the most psychic power in the room, by the way. Okay. Once again, if you think it's going to be even, hands on the head. If you think the next number is going to be odd, hands back here. Are we ready? Have we all chosen? All right.
Here we go.
Here we go.
8.
Evens. So if you have your hands on your head, keep standing up. Oh, we're starting to... no, there's a few people left. One more time. Think. Evens.
Think hard,
or
everyone.
Odds.
Harder.
He's lost the dice. No, where is it?
8.
8. So all the people who had evens. How many are left in the room?
2.
2?
Oh, yeah.
2. All right. One of you is going to have to decide. What was the last number, Evan, for those at home? It was 8? Was it 8?
It was 8.
Okay.
Yes.
So the winner, by the way, the winner will receive a pair of origami dinosaur earrings. There you are. Invented by me. Oh, here's our lovely assistant, Evan, to show everybody. And how to make origami DVD, 20 models to fold. Evan, one last time. Roll the dice. Yeah, we've got to find a winner. Evens down the back, odds here.
He does look pretty odd.
He does.
Oh, that counts. Every roll counts.
And
7.
7. We have a winner, ladies and gentlemen.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you, Evan Bernstein. Thank you, Margaret Downey. Thank you, everybody here at DragonCon. It's been a pleasure to be back here after all these years. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Atlanta, Georgia.